The biggest flashpoint between Russia and the United States is now at sea. On the 7th of January, the US Coast Guard boarded and seized two merchant ships belonging to Russia's so-called Ghost Fleet. The tanker Bella 1 was seized in the North Atlantic, and a second tanker, the Sofia, was seized in the Caribbean. Now, the US is believed to be pursuing several more such Ghost Fleet tankers off Venezuela. But what are ghost ships and why does Russia need them? Well, the Ghost Fleet is a shadowy network of tankers that Russia uses to transport its oil. They're called the Shadow Fleet or Dark Fleet vessels primarily because they evade Western sanctions imposed after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Now, many of these ships are mostly aging oil tankers and other cargo ships that transport Russian crude oil and petroleum products. And Russia relies on this fleet because after the Russia-Ukraine war, the G7, the EU, the US, UK and their allies implemented measures like a price cap on Russian oil. That's around $60 per barrel. It's primarily to limit revenue while allowing global supply. Now, there are bans on providing Western insurance, financing or services that are not available to ships carrying Russian oil sold above this $60 price cap. Now, oil exports are critical for Russia to fund its economy. Oil accounts for over 20% of Russia's GDP. Russia has now built this massive parallel maritime network to keep its economy going. So these ghost ships are often registered under shell companies, often in single ship entities in lax jurisdictions like Panama, Liberia, Gabon, Cook Islands, what are called flags of convenience, to hide their true owners who could be Russian or linked to Russia. Now, such vessels frequently go dark or turn off their automatic identification system transponders to avoid tracking. They also use deceptive tactics like flag hopping, changing their registry or transferring oil in distant ship-to-ship transfers in remote areas like the Eastern Mediterranean and off West Africa. They ship oils primarily between three countries under US sanctions: Iran, Venezuela and Russia. Now, the biggest beneficiary of such cheap oil is, of course, China, another potential US adversary. Now, old vessels like those with an average age of between 15 and 30 years are used for these ghost fleets. They are cheaper, but they are riskier. Most of these ships lack proper insurance coverage and they are in poor material state, threatening the ports that they call on in. This ghost fleet has grown exponentially from a few hundred at the start of the war in 2022 to close to 2,000 such ships by 2025. Now, such ships are believed to handle over half of Russia's seaborne oil exports. Western sources estimate that these generate close to $100 billion in annual revenue for the Russian state. Now, the Ghost Fleet is Russia's workaround to maintain oil revenue despite sanctions. It's a high-risk, high-reward, grey zone maritime strategy that sustains its economy amid global isolation. Now, the US has been slowly turning the heat on this ghost fleet. In January 2025, the US sanctioned 183 such ghost ships. 1 year later, it has now started seizing such ships, primarily to increase its leverage on Russia for conflict termination in Ukraine. Of course, the strategy also keeps another adversary, China, on tenterhooks by threatening their sources of cheap oil. The US strategy, however, is a high-risk strategy because it puts Trump directly on a path of confrontation with Vladimir Putin.